that we were looking back on and nearly almost puts a cap on the Six Nations.
Yes, indeed.
We have one more bit of fun that we're going to get into here, which is our team of the tournament.
That's right. I'm just going to get mine up now.
So we've each picked a team. We do this. We're making a tradition of this after each international window.
Yes.
Basically, we've picked individually aside, and we're going to see now how well they match up. And generally speaking, we agree on like 90% of the positions. I think the last time out we had as much disagreement as we've ever had, because you were bulling that Ireland. You basically picked Ireland for your team of the November series.
The November series, I did. And in defence of that, now some people are critical of it, but in that November series, I thought we played the best rugby on balance, because France played brilliant rugby against the All Blacks, but they also had a pretty poor showing the other week. You know, it was all balanced out. Whereas this time different colours to the team. But I suppose we start with props.
Yes, I mean, at Loosehead, I was so excited to myself. I was like, I'm going to pick Schoeman. It's going to be great because he's been so good, and I had my reasons X, Y, Z. Schoeman's been everywhere. And then I just remembered how good Cyril Bai was.
Yes.
Cyril Bai,
very in the lead on that.
Extraordinary performance. I mean, you just think back to some of the first of all, his work in the contact area, his carrying game is sensational, but also just some of the clutch plays he came up with in that carry game against Ireland in that crucial game that ended up being a tournament decider. Truly. Bashing his way through Peter O'Mahony on his way to that clutch try. He delivered for them in the big moments and the big occasions. He was also just everywhere on the field, an explosive scrummager as well. The highest performing loosehead in the competition, I think, and ultimately, despite my Schoeman love and
even honourable mentions to guys like Genji, who had a good solid showing from loosehead for England against Ireland. Even from Ireland's own ranks, I think if Porter had managed to stay fit and gone toe to toe, then maybe he might have mounted a challenge. But I think, yes, I agreed with you. I went with Cyril Bai also. Thought about Schoeman as well, because he has contributed a lot to that Scottish scrum and he's brilliant, but yeah, it was next level stuff from Cyril Bai in the loose, in the tight, in the breakdown, everywhere. He was everywhere, and it's a serious asset having a prop like that in your ranks, and it contributed to them. So one Frenchman in already at number one. I went with him as well. My hooker, my number two, was also a Frenchman. Julian Marchand gets my vote. I mean, just he was one of the key fulcrum players in that defence. One of the best defensive playmakers they had. His turnover stats are off the charts. He folds into position really quickly and leads the inside line superbly well, as well as adding all the brilliant contact work that so many in that pack have on the offensive end. He carries really well, but it was his defensive contributions, his huge big defensive plays in big spots in all of the games that stood out the most for me. I mean, I'd shout out Dan Sheehan. I thought he came into the team, he brought huge energy from an Irish point of view. I enjoyed Jamie George's performance wrestling his jersey back. Both of the Italian hookers were very impressive, who each had a starting stint, but I definitely think Marchand, in terms of contributions to a team, the defence was what won them that championship, and he was a fulcrum part of that inside defence. So Marchand for me. I'm going to differ slightly and say the Dan Sheehan who you just mentioned, my first Irishman in the ranks. I think he was absolutely. I was close to Marchand, to be honest, as well. I was flipping between the two, but I've kind of opted for this in terms of my front row balance, because I think Sheehan just really, really impressed with we wasn't starting at the beginning of the season, but just the contributions he made, including that brilliant try saver in France that ended up being relatively crucial in terms of bonus points and staying in touch as well. But I thought he really, really impressed. The arrows were very good, but all around the park, the loose play was phenomenal. His speed off the mark and his power, as well as his decisions when to pass and when not to. Didn't once see him do the classic hooker kind of forward pass that sometimes happens when you have those stumpy arms. He executed everything brilliantly.
That Irish shape really suits him. The style of game that Ireland are trying to play, getting him in the tram lines with a man either side. He's brilliant at that. He's got a surprising clip of heel. He looks Dane Colesish.
He does. And with Kelleher to come back in, it's rude health for Ireland. Even Movaca is on the bench for France is brilliant every time he comes in as well. There's a lot of good hookers on show here from those top two sides, but I went with the Irishman, you went with the Frenchman. Fair enough. Indeed. And then rounding out the front row, you see, this was a funny one. I was gonna pick Antonio. It was actually something that you said that stuck with me, that kept me from picking Antonio. I thought he was like a savage in the scrum, and to get penalties up against Genji was in such good form. He was awesome. He did have the benefit of just that tremendously sized pack and engine room behind him, which always helps. And I thought that just towards the tail end of the year, he had one or two, after that superb performance against Ireland, he did have one or two performances that were a dip below that. He gave up a couple of penalties against Scotland at the scrum. His work in the loose, while still explosive and still really good in the contact, especially in the offensive end, just sitting guys down. It wasn't quite as effective a contribution as my pick, who's Tadhg Furlong. And I think, like, Furlong obviously had that nightmare performance against Genge in the scrum, but I still think in terms of overall contributions, you talk about Marchand being a fulcrum of that French defence. He was a fulcrum player in that Irish offence. Everything that they're trying to do from a ball play point of view, Furlong is so crucial, and he carries really well, but his timing and understanding of the passing game is elite. It's really excellent for a tight head to have that footballing ability, and he still had it in spades. It wasn't his best tournament. In his best tournament, he's pushing for player of the tournament, which he wasn't quite in this year, but he was still good enough to make my team. I think he was exceptional and really helped the Irish offence keep rumbling.
It's true. I did the reverse again. I did go with Antonio despite having Furlong in there for the most part. It was that showing against England that probably cemented it, where I was going, like, from a Springbok definition, as much as the razzle dazzle is all very nice, and the fact that he plays 10 as well as tight head is awesome, but your tight head needs to look down the scrum, and he didn't quite do it, and that's kind of my main reason for picking Antonio, who did very much so, especially with that England test that came to them, and Genge did go after him in the first few, and purchase at all, and it was a very impressive, rock solid showing from the big man. He's a lot of kgs to try and shift in any circumstance, but he was brilliant all tournament. To be fair, you wouldn't go wrong picking him either. And to be honest, even Sinclair had some good moments for England, and even some of the Scottish side heads did all right. Xander and Nell managed to, but
Xander was never making my team.
He was not. He was not close to it. But I went Antonio. I went 2 French props with an Irishman in the middle. That was what I was looking at, because I thought their scrum was mighty, and as much as their defence won them the tournament, probably their scrum was a serious factor in why you were unable to repel them or unable to get purchase or counterplay against them, because their scrum was just such a rock.
No question, and Antonio a big part of that.
Absolutely
fair enough calls. We'll look at the lock, stocks and 2 smoking barrels now. I mean, for me, there was, like, the only question mark for me, I think it was between 3 men, and so it was 2 goes into 3. If you're picking a 23, it's nice and easy.
Yes.
But it was the 2 French boyos, Woki and Willemse, who I thought were equally brilliantly competitive and sensational. Woki, obviously, he's got that rangy capacity. He was brilliant in this tournament. He makes a mess of teams' lineouts. He's everywhere in the loose. He's got a lovely sleight of hand. Comes up with all kinds of fancy plays on the offense and defense. And then Willemse, by contrast, this just heft, the sheer heft of that man. He is heft personified, and he's just relentlessly physical everywhere, and adding just a technical element to it as well. He doesn't make that many mistakes. You think a big Safa lock like that, and even in times gone by when he first came into the team, there'd be the odd high tackle or sloppy drop. There's been none of that. He's been technically perfect in everything he's done, and relentlessly physical on both sides of the ball, and a huge part of that scrum that works so well for them from the tight head side.
Absolutely.
Just locking down that scrum, being the quintessential tight head lock. I think he was sensational, and he does get a place in my team. Woki has to drop out because Itoje is incredible, and that's what I went with. I thought Itoje just was, even despite England's poor performances, like even in the Ireland game, but the Wales game, just making
phenomenal playmaking.
He's dialed into the defensive turnover so well.
Yeah, in any setting, in mauls, in rucks, in open play, he's very useful. I'm not going to vary the lead. I went for the exact same locks. I went to Willemse and Itoje, and I was musing on certain things. I was like, maybe Tadhg Byrne did play well, and then Woki did play well, but it was like, the Willemse Antonio thing I couldn't break up at all, because I think they are just monstering that side of the scrum right now, and I can't wait to see them face the Springboks, because I think that's a serious matchup in that particular area. And Itoje for the same reasons you just listed. Like, even in a discombobulated, disorganised England team, he looked devastating in every tight exchange a lot of the time.
Even in the Italy game, as they stuttered, like, he was everywhere. Just monstering over everything.
Italy kryptonite was how he was in that game. Totally impressed with those locks. Nothing much more to add. You kind of said it all. So moving on to the back row, where I kind of colourful one. I was tempted by a fair few players. I was tempted to just go all French. I was tempted to go all Irish. What I've ended up doing is go for Josh van der Flier at 7, who was
pretty much one of the first names on it, and Aldred at 8 because I wanted both of them in, and then I'm very unlucky to miss out was Cross, who was brilliant, but I actually gave it to Hamish Watson as honourable mention for the Scots and their combative defence. He kind of represents all of them there. He's the only Scot in my team. It's also congratulations for getting through 4 campaigns in a row without missing a tackle. I don't know how you do that as a back row forward. It's pretty freakish, but I thought he was very, very combative, so I have him at 6 in with those 2 other indefatigable engines.
Fair shout. I also went with Josh, again one of the shortlisted for player of the tournament, and with good reason, just bringing an extra level of energy, reads the game really well on offense and defense, makes so few mistakes, and has
himself
more and more
and
explosive play.
Both have that kind of similar engine where they just go from zero. Their acceleration's quick and they don't slow down as the game goes on. They just keep going.
Aldred had a poor day against Wales, which they've said he was ill in that game. Outside of that, was awesome. Everywhere, all over the field. And that game, the performance against England, he was absolutely everywhere.
And his telepathy with Dupont for not just that try, but in the general and the open play. He's ferocious.
He folds into shape on defence so well. He's actually another fulcrum player in that defence on the inside, very similar to what Josh does for Ireland.
He sets the line speed. He's indefatigable, just just goes all day.
Exactly right. So I have him and Josh in at 8 and 7, and I do have Francois Cross, who is my underrated sort of kind of my flew under the radar player of the tournament, if that makes sense. I think he was
unseen work.
Yeah, dark arts. He's a phenomenal playmaker. Like he's probably second to Itoje in terms of the plays he comes up with in the breakdown. Like he's a savage. Absolute savage. Francois Cross, a lovely player. Just all kinds of brilliant, spoiling defensive plays, clever little offensive plays, makes so few mistakes. I think he's a worldie of a player. I think he had an awesome tournament and is well worthy of his place. So I do appreciate what you're saying about the Mish. I actually think the Mish was good, but he's had better tournaments. He's been more explosive on both sides of the ball.
I think Scotland in general have had better tournaments. That's probably where that comes from as well. Like their offense wasn't great.
Exactly.
But their back row they were doing a lot of dogged work. Even Daragh I was thinking about as well, because I was like, geez, Daragh really did hustle. He really impressed me.
He was very good, truly. But
even like Tane Basham and stuff in the early going for Wales was doing something similar from last season.
Their breakdown was such a mess.
Couldn't go to a Welshman. And it's not unusual now skitting through the back row, and I wasn't thinking of putting any Welshman in there. And that's an unusual look for a post Six Nations kind of dynamic.
It very is. And likewise England, unfortunately Dombrand would have been closest for me. He obviously was top in the turnover
Simmons
stats
was good. Like actually Simmons had a few good defensive moments, that great tackle on Tyg Furlong as well, but no, I don't quite think they again, it was just not quite cohesive or consistent enough from England, and Itoje is in there as kind of representative of what England can do and do well, and similar.
And Dombrand wasn't far away. It's just he's going head to head with Aldred here, so he came out the wrong side.
French guys were too good, and that Irish pack were pretty good as well in pushing them, and we saw that. So those are the packs. Let us know who's in your pack. But with that, we're going to move on to the back line, and I think no suspense because we're going to skip over the 9, I guess.
Well, go for the 9.
He was just named player of the tournament this year, the player of the
Callum
tournament. Callum Braley, that's right, the Italian. Antoine Dupont, France captain, Grand Slam winning captain, scoring his games, icing tries all the time, is the difference between the teams a lot of the time when it comes down to it.
He's had some freakish level performances in this tournament where he's shown it's not just the relentless physicality, the genius on offense, seeing the game, running the attack, sniffing out tries. It's also the phenomenal defensive acumen. Like he reads the game on both sides of the ball as well as anyone in Test rugby.
Has weight to throw around, even though he's a wee man on the pitch.
Surprisingly physical,
ragdoll
really
Itoje.
Quick.
Just
passes crisp consistently, always clears the ruck.
Clearing the ruck is my favourite attribute of his. Is like so many scrummies, when they get scragged, they do a little shape or something, or try and buy a penalty. He fights for it, but gets the ball away from there, and I love that about him. That's one of my favourite qualities in a halfback. Shout out an honourable mention to Whiskey. Jamison Gibson Park was the closest contender in my mind to that jersey. He had a bloody good tournament, setting a tempo that's pretty unusual to an Irish team in a Six Nations campaign, and it was brilliant and worked for him the whole time.
I think Murray's form has improved towards the tail end of the year, but I don't think the great Irish offence, as good as Sexton is, as important as Sexton is to it, I don't think the offence happens without Gibson Park. He's been crucial. It's a different level of tempo.
Ali Price was the other honourable mention as well. I think he played a really solid campaign from 9 for the Scots, and things went awry around him, but no one was quite as well rounded or as dangerous as as Antoine Dupont this time.
Not
So he got the 9
yeah.
jersey in my team, and I dare say in yours too.
Yes.
Probably in yours too.
Yeah, Antoine Dupont was the first name on the sheet.
Yeah.
Not a controversial one.
Yeah.
Fly half then?
10 different gravy. I had, I thought long and hard about this because there were a multitude of options. And
for me, there were 2.
No, I went the other one who you aren't going to give it to, but Marcus Smith.
Really?
Impressed me the most.
Really?
At 10.
Oh, no way. Yeah. I mean, he was great, but in many ways.
No, I think he genuinely impressed me most because Ntamack or Sexton, I thought the offense kind of operated even independent of them, whereas in a team with no offense at all that I could determine apart from Marchand hitting 1 or 2 good lines, he still managed to grab tries and get things moving. And I just want the joy of putting him next to Antoine Dupont in my dream team and see what happens there, because I actually thought individually he impressed me.
He was certainly impressive in some areas. I don't think he was playing on the same level as Sexton and Ntamack. And you say that the offense ran independently of them. Like, the Irish offense doesn't function without Sexton. Sexton runs the Irish offense. He makes it happen. He puts the guys in position. He makes it tick. He runs the show.
So is that who you're picking?
Yes!
Not
by lots. I know Ntamack was close. Well, Ntamack had a glorious performance against France in that last game. He's reading the game even better. But he kind of plays where Gibson Park plays lieutenant to Sexton's captain in the Irish offense. I think Ntamack plays lieutenant to Dupont's captain.
I think
in the French
they
offense.
both have good telepathy, to be fair, and actually they have a good chemistry in terms of unpicking us. Particularly, they have a good track record of linking that exact pair to unpick Irish defences. No, it's right, but
does the 10 not bear? Like, I know it's very tough on Marcus Smith, and I'm not about to blame him, but does the 10 not bear some responsibility for the offense not functioning or existing at all? And
I think he bears some, but he was the only, as far as I could tell, he was the only avenue the offense had to get anything going was through him. That's what impressed me, and that's what prompted the pick. Whereas I felt with both France and with Ireland, like even in that France game, the offense ticked through whiskey and managed to generate good scores even if Sexton wasn't on the pitch, and that was part of where he didn't actually play in the France game was another factor in it. But no, Marcus Smith, of all the Englishmen, I thought he actually did very, very well, considering the offense just wasn't there for him. Like, he only had Malins operating with him in the first few weeks and trying to run with him, but everyone else was discombobulated. They were chopping and changing things. They were putting fullbacks on the wing and telling them to kick the ball. But no, I think honestly he impressed me the most, more so than the other 2 lads who played in fantastic teams.
Again, this is the biggest. This is like the bigotry of expectations. This is
maybe so.
Sexton didn't impress me any more than he impressed me in November, but he impressed the hell out of me in November. He's really impressive.
Yes,
I thought Sexton was. I thought Ntamack was great, but I thought Sexton was far and away the most impressive player this tournament. He's a fulcrum. Like, you talk about a fulcrum player, he is the Irish offense in so many ways.
I don't know if that's
true.
Oh
man, it doesn't work without. Like, it's not like I hate to break it to you. Like, our offense is good, but the decision making without him is night and day compared to the decision making with him, and they just aren't as fluid, and it doesn't operate as well without him. They make more mistakes. He puts the right runners on the ball and does it consistently. He's kind of old man veteran quarterback. He knows all the shapes. He picks the right pass every time. I couldn't fathom picking another 10, to be honest.
No, I knew that you would. So for a bit of colour, I'm going to chuck Marcus in. And it's a nice halfback pairing that I just fantasise about, but it's never going to happen.
It's not as nice as Dupont Sexton.
Dupont Sexton's another one, but I think I picked that one the last time.
Well, here we go. Fair enough. All right, well, we'll go to the centres then.
Centres of excellence.
Wow, I'm just reeling from that.
Non-winning of Sexton that you weren't fathoming.
What country do you come from? Marcus Smith over Johnny Sexton.
Based on this
my goodness. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to move on. Centres, I went with. I was looking through the options. I don't think it was a great tournament for centres.
In the most part, I thought it was a great tournament for a couple.
A lot of guys struggled in that position. I thought Scotland were chopping and changing at 12, didn't know what to do there. I thought the Italian guys, again, like some solid defensive play from Brex and Co.
The razzle-dazzle came elsewhere.
The razzle-dazzle came elsewhere is right. And Ireland even too, like the interplay of the forwards and some explosive plays from the wingers.
It was either Aki or Henshaw rotating in. It was a good tournament for Ringrose, actually.
It was.
And he grabbed a nice try at one point, but he was straightening more. He was addressing your concerns about listing to the right, he was straightening a lot better.
Yeah, exactly, doing sort of basic stuff. But I think the two guys who stood out were the defensive unit that stopped anyone from getting outside them, that worked together really, really well. Dante at 12. There's some of the jackal steals out of him. He functioned really well in that offense and had some great offensive carries, got them go forward when they weren't going forward.
Big, robust unit that he
but
is.
It was his defensive work
his
stood out for me.
Great. His tackling is phenomenal as well.
And Fiku, the leader, for me, even though Dupont is brilliant, Fiku is my player of the tournament. I thought he was sensational.
He was the same last year as well. He's been in a fine vein of form.
He's a leader. Close to arm levels.
Well, he's around his peak now. He's one of the older guys in that team, but he's still relatively young. Like he's starting to push 30 now, but he's a captain of that defense. I went with the exact same. I just picked the French centres because I was trying to chop them out. I was tempted by Ringrose because he was really good and maybe shifting Gael Fiku into 12. And the other one was Marchand for England, who I was like, do you know, he did impress me, but it didn't.
Marchand
rallied. He didn't
finish the season.
That was
strong,
what my thought was. He didn't consistently. Now it was the two French lads, and they did shut down everything that was around them, and they did. They were rock solid. Dante, very impressive. He started impressing me in that Australia tour last year, and he's kicked on. He's become a very able deputy for Fiku's shooting, and it does, like we were highlighting, operate very similar to that De Linde Am axis, where Am makes the reads and the hits out wide where it gets difficult. But if they're going to be forced back inside, you have a brick wall unit who's going to meet them there and smash them and get over the ball and make a mess of it. So I went with the French centres as well, with no compunction about it. It was just they were better than everyone else this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we move on to the back three.
The back three, colourful back three that I went with. I was tossed, there's loads of coins to toss because there were a lot of standout performers, and there were a lot of people who were unlucky to miss out. I thought, even in the green jersey, there were a fair few in the back three who impressed throughout, but there was rotation. In the blue jersey of France, obviously all of them always impressive, always forever. Even in Scotland, in some defiant shows, you had Darcy Graham look brilliant at times in otherwise raggedy showings. Josh Adams did well even despite things floundering around him. But no, I went ultimately with on the left wing Gavin Villiers, who impressed the hell out of me. The hound dog that he is, little terrier, was just he was everywhere all tournament long. Great on the defensive thing, between him ragdolling Hugo Keenan or ragdolling Itoji. He's deceptively tough. Really good technique in the breakdown, which is something that a lot of sevens converted players really have, because they're used to 1v1 rucks that are such a clean picture you have to paint. He's very, very technical and very quick, but also just lethal with ball in hand. So I went with Villiers on the left. On the right, I went with Angie Capuozzo of Italy.
Just on a
two-game showing, stuck him on the right wing because I think he deserves it. Credit to him.
Fair enough.
I was tempted by Monty Ioane, but I actually picked him last time out as well for Italy's sake. I'm going with Angie Capuozzo. I think he deserves it. I think he was very, very, very impressive, and I would like to see more of him. And then at fullback, I opted for, after much humming and hawing, because actually a fair few of the other fullbacks impressed me for many reasons, I went with Hugo Keenan, who actually, after a rough enough start in the first couple of games, ended up putting in some of his best showings in the green jersey in towards the tail end, and he just looks like he's not going to be shifted from that green jersey, from that 15 jersey in green for the next 10 years probably, by the way he's playing at the minute. So I went with an Irishman, a Frenchman and an Italian for colour.
Amongst stiff competition, I do think that Hugo Keenan was the best fullback in the competition. I think he was the most solid. He is offering more and more on an offensive side. His passing game's getting more clean, his reads are getting more clean, but defensively his backfield work is
great hit on from the Scottish point of view, it's terrible hog no pass, but from an Irish point of view, it was a smashing hit that he put in to prevent that try.
Superb. And he was full of those kinds. He was full of those kinds of plays all tournament. His cleaning up of the backfield was immense. And I think he edged out Stewart and Hogg and Chamonix.
Chamonix struggled in the aerial collision. That was where his place kicking gives him a string to his bow that others don't. He's a beautiful place kicker of a ball. But somewhat vertically challenged sometimes in the aerial contest. Liam Williams showed his importance in that Italy defeat. The second they haul him out of there, they go from infallible in the air to just fallible everywhere every time. He had me think Freddie Stewart was very impressive, but they shifted him to the wing to accommodate Furbank incorrectly in the final thing as well. There were a lot of impressive showings from a lot of fullbacks. Hogg's boot was good throughout, but on balance, Keenan was the most consistent.
Yeah, I agree. And then on the wings, if I could pick two left wingers in earnest, I would. But I was going to go with Ioane and Villiers. For the reasons you outlined. I had picked a 23, so
you were bailing out of these
absolutely.
options.
I put Villiers on the bench, so I went with Monty Ioane. And I just think Villiers was extraordinary in so many ways, and as you say, the breakdown work. But Monty Ioane, the energy he brings, and the incredible plays at him. Like, he'll get the ball on the edge of the field. He'll have a defender in front of him and another one 5 yards ahead of him, and he'll just beat the two of them before he even thinks of doing. Instantly drop the ball on the toe, and for that skill is so difficult, and it's so underrated how good he is at it. He lands it pretty much on a sixpence, right where he can reach with his elite speed. Recovers the ball, dances past players. He's extraordinary what he makes happen with so little ball and so little space. He gets that offense rumbling, and even though he had that mistake in the Wales game, the reason they were getting so much go forward ball, or any go forward ball, was Monty Ioane. So I thought he was consistently brilliant with so little service. And I actually think, like, if you put him in any of the other teams in the competition, he might well just be top try scorer and considered the best winger in the competition easily. So Monty was in for me, and then on the right wing I went with Darcy Graham. I was consistently impressed with him. I think he was consistent, like every game.
There were other guys awesome. I thought the Irish lads, Mac Hansen and James Lowe, he missed the first start thing but came out with a bang, and his exit kicking. Penot for France was a gliding bit of majesty, as he always is.
Finds great tries.
There's a lot of good wingers out there.
Between Penot and Graham, but I gave Graham. I thought Graham was consistently explosive and brilliant.
And even in other floundering Scottish showings, he was pretty much game every time the ball came near him. He didn't really make many mistakes that I can remember. That's fair shout. Two decent teams.
Let us know now, whose is the better team? Obviously the Smith run mess over here, or the glorious Sexton offense that would open his team up.
Yes, well, to be fair, Dupont is leading both of our offenses. Let's not be real.
The genius of my team, Shane, is that Sexton and Dupont work together. Anyway, who has the better team? Let us know. What's your team? Let us know in the comments down below. How foolish are we?
Yes,
all of those good points.
Just a final tally I had on that. I ultimately, I think I went with 8 French, 3 Irish.
I'd have to
2
count.
2 English, 1 Scottish, 1 Italian, and 0 Welshman.
I'd have to count.
First time in a long time that I've done 0 Welshmen, but I couldn't really think of any that I would put in.
6,
7, based on this year's showing, and
I'm not 8 Frenchmen for me as well.
Right,
and then Irishmen, 1, 2, 3, 4 Irishmen.
Okay,
and then just a sprinkling of the rest.
1 each from
Itoje, and then who aren't Irish and French. Itoje,
Darcy Graham's not Irish or French.
Ioane, Graham.
An Italian, a Scotsman, and an Englishman.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, there was that amount of separation between first and second and the rest that it probably is right that there's a healthy supply of Frenchmen in this, because
I
had
had Schoeman on my bench. I had Dombrandt on my bench.
I didn't go through a bench. We probably should have convened on that. I probably would have had a similar bench. I'll go with the same bench.
Anyway, forget about it. Let us know your team. Let us know your thoughts on our teams of the tournament down below. But for now, we're going to move on. We're going to put a bow over the Six Nations. It is over. It is done. I mean, everyone else put a bow over 2 weeks ago. But now it's officially over.
Now that we've covered it and set our piece, that is the end of the Six Nations 2022. Huge congratulations to France. Slightly smaller congratulations to Ireland. Huge congratulations to Italy as well, and commiserations to the other lot, and they need to dust themselves off in summary. But with that, we are going to move on.
Thank you very much for watching the Overlap Rugby podcast. If you enjoyed that video, be sure to give it a like, share with your friends, and leave a comment down below as well. We really do want to hear your thoughts.